Welcome inside the Digital Hub, Denmark. Please welcome to the stage David Helgason in conversation with Camilla Rygaard-Hjalsted.
Welcome, David.
Thanks.
David, you co-founded Unity Technology from a basement just around the corner, somewhere in Nørrebro, 16 years ago.
Something like that.
Yeah. And today it's a unicorn valued $3 billion, employing more than 2,000 people. It's a tech company that actually disrupted the entire gaming industry. You're still on the board, and you're one of the most active investors in Denmark. A fun fact for everyone in the audience, David actually studied physics and Middle Eastern studies and psychology. So that's a little bit of
and 2 weeks of computer science.
And 2 weeks of computer science. Good for you. Now, on your LinkedIn profile, you state that you enjoy connecting the dots in front of audiences, which is what we're doing today. However, I wanted this to be a different interview. You've given very, very many, and you have a very impressive record. I wanted it to be different because I wanted to take a different route. I wanted to see if a certain part of your leadership skill, we could call it your emotional intelligence, might have played an integral role in your success. Are you cool with that?
I'm happy to try.
You're happy to try, right? Thank you.
And I just want to say, like, I'm a little coffee and sniffly today. I'm actually really sick. I'm going straight back to bed after this.
Thank you for coming.
Sorry if I'm a little off.
Thank you for doing this, David. Now, let's start with where you are. You could have chosen anything under the earth because you were in Silicon Valley, and you could have gone, you could have stayed in San Francisco, you could have gone to New York, Tel Aviv, you name it. You ended up coming back to Denmark. And this is maybe, 5, 6 years ago. Mm-hmm. Why did you do that?
It's a really good question. My wife's Danish and wanted to move back. And we have kids, and there was a certain gravity towards kind of the bicycle life of Denmark, which we both like. Mm-hmm. But yeah, sometimes I wonder the level in Silicon Valley, which is not the US. It's a very special place. It's so high, and you sort of surround yourself with people that are so expert in kind of building technology companies that I go back a lot. Let's say. Let's put it like
go back. Now, when you are here and you're looking at the entrepreneurs, because you also invest in them, do you see any special characteristics of the Danish-born companies?
I mean, there's a lot of good companies coming out of here. That's good. People have good educations, and I sometimes think that the sort of freedom from worrying about healthcare, which is kind of the big worry in the U.S. American families, like frees people up somewhat to just kind of go and strike out on their own. So I think there's a certain something good about that. I think Denmark is okay. Like it's sort of, I think we're like on the level with our neighbors in Northern Europe. In sort of starting companies, not super better, but also not worse.
All right. As a co-founder and a leader and an investor, how do you actually make decisions or motivate people? Let's look at teams. You've been quoted for using empathy, passion, your gut feeling, and intuition. Mm-hmm. Is that sort of a mindset or a skill set that is useful for creating successful companies, you think?
Maybe, hopefully. I mean, like, it worked out this one time really well. It's hard to know. I mean, one thing that I think is true is that, when you're trying to lead something because you're put into a position of leadership for whatever reason, like you sort of have to use yourself, and this happens to be my style. I don't think there's any way around that. But no, I think these are these sort of styles can work really well, and certainly did for me. I mean, it sort of I think we managed to create a really high level of trust and a sort of a calm, slightly sort of intellectual atmosphere, where like people were sort of on any level felt they were allowed to kind of just speak up and have opinions and argue their cases, and really, really big decisions in the company's history sort of came from. I mean, there's nothing ordinary about these people because they're all really brilliant, but like people without sort of a fancy title or like a rank on their shoulder.
Yeah. So, any investor will say this, that they don't invest in technology per se, and they also don't invest in the best idea. They actually invest in the teams, and they're looking for something X, and this is kind of what we are revolving around now. What do you describe as the most critical factor for growth and success, just based on your Unity experience?
An industry that is undergoing change, honestly. Like, the team is very important. I don't want to put that down, but no, I mean, like, we didn't understand how much the game industry was about to change when we started. In fact, it was maybe not really changing yet so much, but it was growing a lot, double digits per year for decades. I think, then you put towards that a team that is sort of like really good. I mean, there's some really smart people and a good culture of whatever is important for that team. Like in our case, it was this kind of deliberation and trying to understand and think through the changes and maybe not foresee them, but at least be fast at sort of being there with whatever was needed at the time. And then, things can happen in an interesting way.
So an industry going to change or undergoing change, I think in the audience we have just about all industries and everyone is undergoing change.
Yes.
So the opportunity is there.
I would actually,
However, there
absolutely.
are companies that fail and don't take it to scale.
Very true, yeah.
And so do you see that you applied some certain part of your skills, or was that not deliberate? Maybe it's just integral part of you.
It was not that deliberate, no.
Excellent.
I mean, well, we applied our entire physique, like whatever we had, we used, of course, and didn't sleep much.
So let's get back to your industry. It wasn't really foreseen that gaming was going to be this big. It was for all the geeks, and they were disconnected. How important would you say that you using your digital imagination, something I'm very happy about, was a success for you building the company?
I mean, we came out of kind of programming as kids, all three of us, founders. And so I think we had, like most sort of technology geeks, we had a very strong intuition for change. I mean, when you live from when you're like 11 years old, you live in a world where computers get, twice the speed every 18 months or whatever. I think you're used to change and like change is somewhat intuitive. That probably helped. Also, we were very young and just sort of dumb about the industry. So like we didn't come with a lot of preconceptions. Like 5 minutes before we arrived, the industry had been quite small.
Yeah.
And then 5 minutes later, it was quite big. So, a lot of the preconceptions that, people that we met who had been in the industry for a decade or more were kind of getting quite wrong. And we were not smart enough to know that, but we just, learned from the beginning. Like we were sort of had this kind of beginner moment.
Attitude.
Yeah.
So you were bold and on
the
winger.
I guess we were bold.
You made decisions. At some point, one of you, maybe that was you, had the insight to say, I want to democratize gaming. Was that you?
No, it was actually well, it's hard to know, but probably it was Nicholas Francis, one of my co-founders.
Okay.
Or maybe it was, I don't know, actually. But there was a lot of long conversations in the basement. But, I mean, like, the history of technology, is almost the history of democratization, like taking something and making it more available. Building tools for each other, and I mean, like the sort of the whole history of civilization is that.
Yes.
And so we sort of came with that intuition, and we came to an industry that had like expensive and complicated tools, and we were like, what if we could make them really easy, and idiots like us could use them. So I think that was the sort of fundamental intuition we had, and brought that to that industry as well. Yeah.
And you stuck to that, right? How many times did your board of directors say, that's a foolish idea, it won't pay?
Oh, never.
Never. So
no,
everybody
no.
believed in your
We aligned ourselves with
intuition.
extremely good investors. were unable to raise money in Europe when we started for various reasons, both because we were idiots, because the market wasn't actually that big, and then the financial crisis happened and sort of made sure that everything froze up for a couple of years. And then we went to the US, and again, not just general US, but to Silicon Valley, where there were people that were much smarter than us about these things, and they had sort of analyzed that. I mean, they had seen the smartphone revolution coming. They understood how gaming is sort of an important part of every new computing sort of revolution, and how developers are the ones who are always creating the new things. And then they saw a company that like sort of combined these three forces in one, and also was kind of popular with. We made a solution that was popular with our customers, and so it went really fast by the time we met the right people.
All right.
And they stuck with us, and they're still with us
Yeah.
after like 10 years now.
Because we live in a world that is totally unpredictable, and there's a lot of uncertainty. And as leaders, we seek to use artificial intelligence to help us sort the overload of information. Now, do you think that emotional intelligence, everything that we're talking about, the more softer skills, might actually play a bigger role today and in the future than it did before?
That's a very good question. It seems likely. I can't quite formulate why though. Maybe when things are changing very fast, you have less time to analyze, and then sort of intuition and trusting other people who have intuitions also. Like you have a colleague, and that colleague has a strong intuition about something, and maybe you don't have the time or the sort of the data to kind of formulate the thesis properly in a PowerPoint, like this is my business case, yada yada. So if you live in a world where things are changing faster, maybe there's a case for trust and intuition to play a bigger role. I mean, it definitely does that in smaller teams.
And I can imagine lots of leaders in this audience would say, well, we are overwhelmed with the data, and we're being told you have to analyze your data, you have to use market analysis to base your decisions on that. And yet, the emotional intelligence and your intuition was probably an integral part of your success.
No, absolutely. And I actually, I'm always slightly awkward when I meet people that run big companies or big organizations, because I only ran a company up to 500 people. So I'm not going to make myself sort of, the authority on how to run a big company. But what I very clearly learned when I was doing my thing was that, I would hire, leaders, middle managers, whatever, to do certain things, and some were really smart, and some were very probably smart and intuitive, and the difference was just night and day, because the smart people, they would sort of be doing analysis and then more analysis and sort of getting stuck. And the intuitive people, they could move through the sort of very complicated decision space, the 10,000 little decisions you have to make when you're doing a new thing or something, with grace and speed. That was wonderful. They would make mistakes, and systemic mistakes, because intuition is very, you're always blind to a lot of stuff. You blind yourself, that's part of intuition. But those were so much more valuable. Again, I don't know how it works in a big organization.
So maybe we should characterize being smart as somebody who also has the intuitive faculty.
At least the value of their intelligence was greater when they could also kind of make these fast decisions, and sort of elegantly. Yeah.
So I looked you up on LinkedIn, and I saw you have a very impressive long list of recommendations you've given. And you use phrases like, this person's passion was fantastic, or she was so fabulous, I don't have words for it. So if you need to talk to her, call me, I can give you, the full story. There were people that have followed you for a very long time. So I asked myself, David, how do you lead passion? How do you lead to overperformance and to this rock solid loyalty? Young kids can get jobs everywhere, so what is it?
They just. In our case, we fell in love with our customers. Our customers were really cool people. They're smart, they're creative, they're trying to make games, they're trying to build things, and so I think we just fell in love with them, and then it sort of merely became a task of conveying that love and kind of showing it.
It's all love.
I mean, it was a company sometimes run on like millions of hugs. We would hug each other and hug our customers, and at some point I wanted to introduce it as a KPI, but I don't know.
Oh, KPI.
We didn't go there.
That's a good one. So let's go back to Denmark again and discuss us as a coming up unicorn nation, if we could. How would you describe the Danish tech scene today compared to those that you see Silicon Valley and elsewhere? And how has it evolved, in your opinion, over the last, I can't remember, is it 5 years you've been back?
Yeah. So, I mean, I moved to Silicon Valley 10 years ago, and then I came back 5 years ago, right? So when I left, it was like nothing. There was like nothing here. It was quite bad. When I came back, it was a lot better, and now it's better yet, which is great. So people who are here, they're like, yeah, we got much better, which is true. But I mean, you should not underestimate that other ecosystems also got better. So I'm not sure actually if Denmark really gained too much. But I mean, the good thing is the world is significantly flatter. So investments happen more easily across borders. US investors are investing in Europe. US companies acquire European companies at a higher rate, at least in the tech sector, than before, and so on. So that means that it's sort of easier to maintain a system here. Yeah, I mean, it's improving. We're trying to make it better.
Great. We have some global niche footholds, and we'll be discussing them today. One of which is the fintech scene, robotics, health tech, ag tech or new food, and gov tech. Now, these ecosystems have some of the same challenges as we've seen elsewhere, namely attracting enough talent, digital talent, and in our case also investments. What's your perspective on this?
I think these are all sort of reasonable clusters, or like what do you call it? Yeah, clusters or ecosystems. At least in some of them, especially when it comes to GovTech, I'm not sure the Danish sort of public sector is a particularly good customer. I think there's been made a lot of stupid decisions. Instead of buying like solutions from small companies, going and sort of hiring, sorry to name one out, but like an Accenture, but that's a category of companies for a lot of million to build like bad solutions, shitty solutions. And I think like the public sector could be much better at that. Otherwise, yeah, like I think we will have valuable companies in all these segments, and already have, and there'll be more, and that's good for sure.
So how would you describe the current scene for building a unicorn here in Denmark?
So actually, if you look at the statistics, Denmark has produced a lot of like these unicorn, like billion-dollar companies. Statistically, way batting over per capita, it's a lot. So in that sense, it's good. The problem has been like, when you grow past a certain size, you need to move to the, where the customers are, the big markets, the capital, and so on. So all these companies left, except maybe one or two. So that's a problem. I think we can look to Sweden, where the sort of tech industry had like sort of a 5-7 year lead for various sort of historical reasons. Maybe not just historical, but also historical reasons. And there you got a Spotify to stay through, like, to the, not the end, but like to an IPO, to being worth, I don't know what, some tens of billions of dollars.
Yeah.
And we haven't seen that in Denmark. Could we see that in the next 5-10 years? I think it's quite likely. And if it's going to happen, it's going to happen through a number of things, including, some of the people have done it before, helping them out. So at least that's the sort of task of some of us.
Yep. So today we're focusing on new technologies, and AI is one of them. Do you see any specific perspective for the Danish digital frontrunners? You have them all in front of you. Within AI, do you see AI as the vehicle for the new growth?
Yeah, like AI is, machine learning, various sort of related technologies are extremely powerful when applied right. It's hard to imagine no, okay, there will be a few companies that get really big without using machine learning AI, but most companies will apply these, and yeah. So, 3 years ago we decided at Unity we had to double down on it, like to a very large scale. So we hired a lot of people, invested a lot, and it's really paying off. Just in like kroner on kroner investment, it's already very profitable for us to have done that, and it sort of ensures our future. So it's hard to imagine. No, again, sorry. Most companies should go deep on that. There's some good conferences. There's a reasonable amount of talent. This talent is very scarce everywhere.
That is an issue.
But we grow the talent by hiring more people and bringing people from schools and universities.
So more AI, and we will do more unicorns. But David, thank you very much. This was the end of my interview, and thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great day.